Hi guys, Louis Dangoor here from WrestleTalk.com, and I'm here with a bit of a legend. We've got WWE Hall of Famer. We've got DDP on the show. Very excited. And I was saying to DDP before we hit record and went live that I've heard his voice for the last month, I think every day doing DDPY. I know he doesn't like to call it a yoga program, but a lot of it is Yoga Central. So DDP, how are you doing and how have you been keeping with everything going on?
Well, for starters, I want to just qualify what you said there. I don't mind everybody calling it DDP yoga. The reason why I'm branding it DDPY now is because I want people to stop calling it just effing yoga, because it's not. And that's where the thing, I'll tell you what was a really cool moment. When I was helping Cody out and doing stuff with him at AEW, right? And I'm doing this, the riff between me and MJF, who I think is one of the best young talkers I've ever heard. And I love him. And I love the tit for tat going back and forth. But there was a moment where I just paused, letting it settle. And instead of chanting DDP, they started chanting yoga. And anyone who knows me, if that would have been someone who walked up and said, "Man, I love your program, man. I love doing your yoga." I go, "What'd you call it?" "Yeah, I love your yoga." I go, "What did you call it?" DDP yoga. DDP. But when people when you get, I think it was about 7,000 or 8,000 people there that night. When you get damn close to 8,000 people chanting yoga in a wrestling show, like, you're doing something right. You know what I mean? It was amazing, and I just had to laugh out loud. So we put this reel together because I'm a production company, really more than anything. Like, everything you do, you see, from the resurrection of Jake the Snake to our next new documentary coming out. It's called Relentless, and it goes from me blowing my back out to where we are today. We do it all. We film it, we edit it. AEW. If you're watching vignettes, my guys did them. Like, we were doing stuff for Cody when he had, there was no company. It was just that all in, I said, "Cody, let us just follow you. Let's do some vignettes like the Bucks have been doing for years, and we'll just do it our version." So for months, I just did it for nothing, because without Dusty Rhodes, there is no Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah. I mean, we'll get on to talking about DDPY because, as I said to you, I don't promote or have people on the podcast promote stuff that I don't believe in. I myself have been doing it for the past month, and I guess you do go in with that stigma thinking it's going to be yoga, it's not going to be hard. And then the first session, you're like, damn, that hurt. That hurt. You say...
But a good hurt, right?
A good hurt. It's like a, wow. I mean, doing what I do, sitting on a desk all day, my back hurts. And then when I did that for even a week, I could feel a difference. So we'll get on to talking about that because I genuinely think it is an amazing program that you guys offer. Actually, you know what? We'll get on to talk about it now because why not?
No. Let's talk wrestling. We'll hit it later. But I will tell you, because people are going to see DDP. He's wearing his DDPY shirt. He's always wearing that shit. But it says Rudy Rudiger up on, and it says football behind me. Well, I'm not even going to tell. If you guys don't know who Rudy Rudiger is, there's a movie. One of the most inspirational movies ever. Kobe Bryant. If you look up Kobe Bryant on YouTube and Rudy, you'll hear Kobe say, "That was my go-to movie." One of the most inspiring movies ever made. And he has become a very good friend of mine, mine and my business partner, Steve Yu. And we're out here visiting him. And as I'm pulling in, I've got my buddy Marlon, who's he's like he takes care of all my bookings as far as, online or radio or TV or whatever it is. And he's like, "Dude, I know you with Rudy. Don't forget, you got that podcast." So I walked in, I go, "Rudy, before we do anything, I've got to do a podcast." He's like, "Shaw, use mine. So that's why Rudy Rudiger. And there's not one movie with Rudy. If you're looking to be inspired, there's two. The first one is Rudy, which was done by Warner Brothers. The next one is a documentary, and it's called Rudy Rudiger, The Walk-On. And that not only will inspire you from what happened in the first movie, but it'll really inspire you to see how that movie ever got made. And I'll tell you, bro, it's amazing. And he's an amazing cat to be with. And yeah, I'm just happy to be hanging out with him and call him my bro,
Well, I won't keep you for too long, so I don't keep you out of his company for too long. But I wanted to speak to you about, you mentioned, actually, I was going to speak about Cody. You brought him up earlier. Just listened to an interview with yourself and Chris Van Vliet, which was awesome, by the way. The story going into that was hilarious.
Is that hysterical? And put a link up there for that.
I will.
For people, because how that all happened, I don't want to say anything because it all gets said in that interview. Classic.
It's fun. Slightly more entertaining story going into it than this one. But you mentioned on the show your relationship with Cody. You used to call him a young buck as he was a kid. What is it like watching him on the AEW stage, working with him? I know you did some stuff with AEW sort of in the earlier few months and then had a match there in January. So how's it been for you watching him, obviously, knowing your close relationship with Dusty before he passed?
Super cool. When he quit the WWE, when he asked for his release, like, who asks for a release when they're making a guaranteed $500,000 a year? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you who does that. Someone who believes he's more than what they perceive. Like, when I tore my rotator cuff, I started wrestling at 35 and a half. Mm-hmm. And about 5 months into my contract, I tore my rotator cuff in a match. It was me and Kevin Nash, the Vegas connection, against, God, I think it was Phineas and the other fucking, I can't remember his name right now, Herzog, but he was huge. He's sick, he's 6'5" and 300 pounds. And he came off the ropes with his shoulder out, and I went to give him an elbow, and I blew my rotator cuff. And then Bill Watts came into the company, and it looked like I was going to, I'm going to get let go. So I told Bill before my contract was up. My arm's not back. I'm not even working yet. And I'm like, I'm going to go on the road, Bill, and I'm going to work with Jake, and I'm going to come back a year from now, and you're going to pay me more money. And he said, I think that's a great idea, because he's going to let me go anyway. And it really broadened my horizons of what I saw. And I learned from Jake. And Cody had already learned how to work. Now we needed to figure out how he's going to be the top guy that he knew he was. Mm-hmm. And having the balls to walk away from that, my hat was off to him. And that Christmas we did a year-end thing. It was like, so tell us about what's happened since you leaving WWE. That was the most money because of the Young Bucks. It was really, from what I understand, because of Kevin Owens. He had called up the Bucks, who he was good friends with, and said, Cody's a solid cat. You guys might want to pull him into your group. And, of course, we know what happened there. And that year, Cody made like 7 figures independently, because of all the things that and he worked his ass off. He was all over the place, Yeah. He had his biggest year he ever had. And I was so proud of him for making it happen. Like, he wasn't going to let anyone tell him what he could or couldn't do. Like, that's me, that's Dusty Rhodes. That's so many guys it's Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, guys who, you're too short. No, not really. It's when your heart's this big, your work ethic's this big, anything's possible.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned earlier when you started talking, you started wrestling at 35. When I mean, I'm going to show my age here. I wasn't alive when you started wrestling, but looking back on it, and you started at 35. You seem like a natural. Did it come naturally to you when you were starting?
The character part. And I was just playing an over-the-top wrestling, this big over-the-top wrestling performer. Being a heel, it's easy to get people to hate you. But if you saw me in the bar later that night, you're like, you're nothing like that guy. Yeah, I know. I'm just playing a part. It's fun. It was fun but it was cheap heat. It wasn't heat the way, the way MJF gets heat.
Yep.
MJF's heat isn't boo, like fake boos. No, you're pissed. You want to see him get his ass whooped, and that just goes to a credit of his promo skills at 23 years old. Now I think he's 24, but he's a baby. For me, it was cheap heat. And I tried to wrestle when I was 23. It didn't work out for me. And then I got my first time. I had 3 matches. I sucked. I hurt my knee. And at the same knee, I got hit in a car accident when I was 12 years old. So I was resting it. I was still in the bar business. I got my first opportunity to run a small rock and roll joint. And I got sucked in with the booze, the broads, and the party. It was too much fun. And then I lost sight of my goal. And wrestling in the 80s went boom and blew up, right? Mm-hmm. And I was so pissed at myself for not putting the work in, for losing sight of my goals over the booze, the broads, and the party. And so I stopped watching wrestling. And what pulled me back one day was flicking the channels, and I caught Gorilla Monsoon with this dude with a leather jacket on, a do-rag, crazy glasses, boa. And who is this guy? It was Jesse the Body Ventura. I was like, this guy's amazing. And then the first guy through the curtain, he's got a bag over his shoulder, Fu Manchu, and he looks like a bad son of a bitch. And then I watch his work in the ring and his promo, and I'm like, Jake the Snake Roberts sucked me right back in as a fan. And then Jake would come in my club, big club I had, about 6 years later in Florida. And it's packed, 1,000 people. And I just happen to be in my office, and I see a camera, camera's on the front door, and I see a guy walk in. He's huge. And he's got a Fu Manchu and long hair. He looks like Jake Snake Roberts. So I run around the outside of my club, and I walk in the front door. I go, Judy, did a guy just walk in here who looks like that wrestler, Jake the Snake? She goes, yeah. She goes, and everybody thinks it's him. So I'm like, boom, I run in there, And then I see him at one of my 6 bars. Place is huge. I walk over to him. I go, hey, bro, are you Jake the Snake Roberts? Who wants to know? I said, the guy who, runs this place. He goes, yeah, what do you need? I said, what do you need? What are we drinking? And that's how I met Jake Roberts. From there, Ted DiBiase, Bushwhackers, Nasty Boys, everybody, if they were leaving Miami and heading to Tampa or Tampa to Miami, they stopped at Fort Myers. It was like a 300-mile trip, so they stopped in the middle, and they knew they had some mark who loved the wrestling and bought everybody drinks the whole night. So it was the beginning of just hanging with those guys. And then as a club owner, I did all the contests, like the hot legs contest, bikini, wet t-shirt, like you name it, I did it. And so I got that up on stage, and then I did all our own radio commercials. So the bottom line is I was getting like training for how to talk in front of a crowd and making them laugh. And just have a great time. So when I got there, when I finally got into AWA as a manager, I knew I'd always dreamed of not being a manager, but being that over-the-top wrestling performer. And so I had like a sixth sense to it, the wrestling part, because when I finally got to WCW, which took me 4 years, when I finally got there, I was still running the nightclub the whole time too, right up till then. So I'm making great money. I took a $350 guarantee, no guarantee of dates, to move from Fort Myers to Atlanta, which was about 9 hours, and 9 hours away. Sold everything. I sold my piece out of the club, and I went for the dream. And as a manager, I managed the Freebirds, and I created Scott Hall's entire gimmick that would later become Razor Ramon. When we were doing it, he was a diamond stud. And after 5 months of working with those guys, Magnum TA came up to me and he said, listen, Dusty, he can't do this, so he asked me to do it. We can't let you manage anymore. And I go, what did I do wrong? I go, I can't manage anymore. He goes, no, you can still do color commentating with Bischoff. We're like the fourth string. You never see our show unless it's 2 a.m. We're like, but we were doing like some superstar show. You can still do the color commentating, but we can't let you manage anymore. I go, what did I do wrong? He goes, that's just it. It's not your fault. But the hair, the clothes, the bling, the dolls, the rap, like you're taking too much attention away from the boys. Mm. And Scott Hall had warned me about it. And I didn't listen. He said, what we should have done, I said, Magnum, are you telling me I'm too over the top for professional wrestling? Mm. He goes, as a manager. Now, what we should have done was put you in a pair of tights and boots and see if you could do this. And he kind of laughed and walked away. Like, oh God, I wish, and he didn't say you were too old, but I was 35 and a half. Mm. And I had 7 months left on my contract. And I was like, fuck this, I never got in this business. I love the managers, but I never got in this business to be a manager. Got in this business to be a wrestler. And so I went down that power plant, and they beat the hell out of me. And I mean, stretched me. They tried to run me off. Oh, now this manager thinks he's going to become a wrestler. He'll become one of the boys. Well, they couldn't run me off. And I figured outworked everyone. And it was, I was nervous starting out. My first match, it was me and Scott Hall against, an enhancement match. And Scott was mad as hell. And at the time, I didn't understand why he was so pissed off. And I was like, I can't believe he's pissed off, and he's working with me when I'm the one who created his gimmick and got him his job when he really needed it. But he was right. Scott Hall was a main event caliber talent who now was tagging with a manager who now is a wrestler. So that brought his shit way down. And I didn't realize that at the time. But after that match, Tony Schiavone, who's now back on TNT, with AEW, Tony Schiavone came up to me and he said, Dallas, that was one of the best first matches I ever saw anyone have. He said, now, if you're this good 6 months from now, you suck. And the reason why I kept getting better is because a lot of guys would learn the craft and they might get the job. They never came back to power plant, ever. If I was off and they weren't using me, or it was a weekday and I was off, I was down to power plant. I was there for 5 years. It got to a point where Bischoff said to me, what are you doing? Why do you keep going back there? You know how to wrestle now. All it's doing is beating up your body At your age, you can't really take that. I said, dude, I'm going to keep going here till I can have a great match with the Big Show or the Giant at the time, or Rey Mysterio. And I was. If one of my favorite matches is a match I lost the world title to, was with Sting. And we were 17 minutes in, and I'm going home. Like, we had a minute left as far as I'm concerned. And the ref walked up to me and said, you got 5 more minutes. I'm like, what? He goes, you got 5 more minutes. So I grabbed Sting and I throw him to the ground and, through the ropes and out to the floor. If you ever see that match, I mean, he's pissed. He thinks I'm taking advantage of him. He doesn't know. He didn't tell Sting, you got 5 more minutes, he told me. So I threw him to the floor before he went to the finish. And at some point, you see me really choking him. Like, we got 5 more minutes. And I chopped the shit out of him. I love working with Sting because we just had a lot of fun out there. So it came to me naturally, the instincts.
Yep.
And if you go back and look at someone who never wrestled, really, Dennis Rodman, if you go back and you watch the character that Rodman was playing out there, which was the heel, and backing off and cheap shotting, like that shit, he knew how to do. Now, the wrestling part, he was not the kind of guy that was going to really put the work in and really learn how to wrestle. He did good enough for where he was at. Great athlete, obviously. When you're a Hall of Fame NBA player, you are a great athlete. Mm-hmm. And but his instincts were a lot how I saw mine. I knew what to do,
Yeah, and I think, as you said, and as I said to you before, you seem like I naturally went into it. But I guess being that manager, being involved in it, do you think that really set you up well for when you transitioned into the ring? Do you reckon you would have been as good at getting the heat, playing the heel, if you weren't the manager before and got used to being in front of the crowd?
Absolutely. It really, again, when you're starting at 35, I figure I'm never going past 40. I don't ever think a million years later, friggin' at 63, almost 64, I'm going to go out there and do it again. That was the farthest thing from my mind. But when you see Relentless, which is the story of from me blowing my back out, creating what today is known as DDP Yoga or DDPY, the story, how it all unfolds, me just trying to help myself. Like, I was told by 3 spine specialists, you're done. You ruptured your L4 and L5. God created this amazing spine. And in between the spine are these amazing shock absorbers. They're called discs. It's why little kids can fall down and get back up. If a kid falls down, you go, oh my God, are you okay? If he falls down, you go, that was great. They're going to laugh, But those shock absorbers only have so many bumps in them. Some have more than others. And for me, I had blown the 2 out, so I was bone on bone. And I had 3, the top spine specialists in the world. I had one in Atlanta. He was the guy. But I went to New York and Houston to talk to all 3. And they all said the same thing. You're done. You had a good run, but you're done. And I was 42 at the time, just signed a multi-million-dollar 3-year deal. So at that point, the guy who wouldn't be caught dead doing yoga the first 42 years of my life would try anything, including yoga. And I was blown away how much it helped me, So it's all about success is all about overcoming adversities and how you mentally move towards them.
And I think we'll get on to talking about, obviously, what the program entails and I guess the impact it had in your life. And also, you mentioned him before, but Jake Roberts, because I think you probably won't say it, but I'm sure he'll probably say you've saved his life and he might not be here without you. Don't want to put words into his mouth, but I don't think it would be sort of presumptuous to say it. I'm sure you won't go as far as say that, but we'll get on talking about it a bit later. I want to talk a little bit about winning the world title for you. You mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
You mentioned in other interviews and in other media, didn't think you'd do it. So what was it like for you when you finally won the world title with WCW?
Well, let me give a predecessor to this, because Dusty was not just my friend, my big brother. He was my mentor, and he'd let me vent to him, because the booking committee did not believe in me, especially, when I came back in 93, because Dusty was in charge then, and we started doing this fishbowl gimmick where I'm going to get wins every week with, enhancement guys. But I'm picking the number, any of the best competitions in this bowl. Of course, it's all enhancement guys. But bottom line is, you're a heel. You can lie. And he had me doing that for 5 weeks. Eric sent him out to pasture. Didn't want to let him go to WWE. Sent him out to pasture. Still paid him. And went with a different group of guys. My push went stage left.
Yep.
And it took a long time, years, before they finally started to use me in the smallest level. But every day I'm down that power plant. And around, I guess it's 94. Yeah, it's 94. I'm on the phone with Dusty. And I'm like, Dust, I'm so sick of this bullshit. I'm going to New York. That's what we called WWF back then, New York. And WCW was Atlanta. I said, I'm going to New York. I'm going to ask for my release. I said, I know I'm never going to be you. I know I'm never going to be Rick or Hulk. I said, I know I'm never going to be the world champion, but, Dream. And he just went, Gareth, enough. I was like, whoa, he's never yelled at me before. He said, what did you just say? Now I feel kind of stupid. I'm like, well, Dusty, I know I'm never going to have your career, your illustrious career. I'm never going to have Hulks or Ricks. He said, no, D. What did you say after that? I said, well, I know I'm never going to be the world champion, Dream. They're never going to put the strap on me, man. He said, then what the fuck are you doing it for? He said, Gareth, if you don't believe, as hard as you work, as much as you have achieved in this business, if you don't believe, you need to get the fuck out of our business right now. And bro, I felt like he reached through the phone and just bitch slapped me. And he kept talking, and I can't tell you a thing he said from then on, but I know exactly what I did. There was a pad right next to the phone, just like this. And I grabbed that pad and I said, I wrote it down, the world champion in 5 years or less. It was 4 years, 4 months, and 14 days later. It was April 11th, 1999. I got in the ring with the Stinger, Rick, and Hulk. Like, the only ones missing from that was Dusty. You know what I mean? But Dusty was the franchise in the NWA at one point, and now the Stinger was. So you could say the Dream was in there too. And
I guess the Dream was in there because without him, perhaps you wouldn't have been in that position with the advice he gave you and that motivation of that phone call. Perhaps you wouldn't have been in that spot if he didn't sort of give you the slap you needed, the proverbial slap you needed.
100%. I tell everyone that, and this is something I said during Jake's induction speech, and it wasn't something I wrote down. It's something that, because when I write a speech, I know the stuff I want to hit, and it's kind of like my match. I know what I want to do throughout that whole match, but I'm going to improv all through it.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, I had said, never underestimate the power you give someone by believing in them. More importantly, never underestimate the power you give yourself by believing in you. And That's what Dusty gave for me. First of all, there was a time when I worked with Dusty in Florida Championship Wrestling. That's where I first developed the real relationship. And at some point, I would go down there and I would get in the ring just a little bit and bounce around and learn how to take a couple bumps as a manager. Sometimes you have to. But I also wanted, as a color commentator, to know how that felt. Because I didn't remember back when I was 23. You know, it was more wrestling as opposed to bumping all over. And I said to Dusty, I'm in Florida Championship Wrestling. I'm the color commentator with Gordon Soley, and Dusty is the head of the company. And I come upstairs after bumping around a little bit. I said, you know, Dust, I think I could really do this. I said, wouldn't it be great if, you know, if I had two other guys and it was like, we were like the Freebirds, you know, and I could actually wrestle too. And, oh, no, D, you're going to be a fire-breathing dragon manager. You're going to be the greatest manager of all time. Like, that's a quote. And I sort of like, well, he knows better than I do. You don't want to do that. He didn't think I could do it. And then when I decided to do it, when they wouldn't let me manage anymore, I'd said myself to my contract, he's not going to say no to me now. And he would use me occasionally. And then he put me with Kevin, with the Vegas connection. But he knew I was still at the bottom of the spot. You know, I had a long way to go. But here's what happened. Over that year that I was gone, it was 11 months I was gone. And I know I have a meeting with Dusty the next day. And we haven't talked at that time in about 3 months, maybe 4 months. And I go to the power plant, you know, because I've been going back there for the last couple of months. And when I get there, Dusty's there. And he's talking to this kid, he's about 25 or whatever. And I'm like, Dust, what are you doing? You don't come to this place. He said, oh, D, I'll give me a big hug. And you're like, I want to see what this kid's got. He goes, get in there. Work with him. Sure. I went in, just started calling shit, doing stuff. Work about 20 minutes. He goes, that's enough. I go, okay, cool. I went out of that ring, went into another ring. I'm there for the next 5 hours. The entire time, I'm in the ring. One ring or another. Now, I don't know it. I thought he left. But he didn't leave. He had gone in the back. And I was watching on the monitors. And I didn't know that. So the next day I get to the office. I sit down. And this is when I'm coming back with that fishbowl idea, right? So we get there, we talk about family first, you know, and then he said, so what you got? And I tell him the fishbowl angle story, right? And he says, you know, D, I know you've always seen yourself as a main event performer in our business. And I got to be honest with you. I never saw it until yesterday. Again, he said, I was there all day and I watched you. He said, if you can keep doing what you're doing, you just might get there. And that was the first time he ever believed in me as a wrestler. So this is like years later. And now we're talking about this. And when he said, if you don't believe you can be the world champion, you need to get the fuck out of our business right now. That means he thinks I should think that, you know? And I'm like, wow, he really believes in me. And the power that gives you. I get choked up just thinking about it, you know, because it's real. And that's what I do with my program. I give people power. Like when Dusty said in a Hard Times video, I put your hand on the screen, like let your hand touch my hand. I'll take you to the promised land. He didn't say that, but you know what I mean. That was the power. And that I think that might be like the greatest wrestling interview ever, because it was connected to people emotionally. And when I got, of course, if you go back 2 years and then go back 2 more months, it was Scott and Kev, because it was my idea about me turning on the NWO. And the booking committee did not want to see that happen. They didn't think it should have been me that turned on them and got the upper hand. I wrote all of that. Now, I didn't write it for 10 weeks or 12 weeks, whatever it was. I wrote it for 3.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't want it to happen, it kept getting postponed. And Kevin and Scott, because when Kevin Nash went in the Hall of Fame, he actually said, I owe my beachfront house to Dally, because I wanted to quit a bunch of times because he was getting treated like shit. And I would say, do not quit, big man. You're going to be the biggest stars in this business. Again, boom, putting your hand on that person, letting him feel. Scott, getting him, creating what would become Razor Ramon. Scott created the character. I just gave him the look and the belief in him that every time we ever did anything, it turned into unbelievable shit, And he took the cutter. Kev wanted to take it too, but Bischoff wasn't going to let that happen. Kev said, I'll take it too. I'm like, yeah, that's almost going to happen. But I never pitched that idea. Kevin did at the bar after one night when I gave him the idea. Because my whole thing was, if Bish doesn't do this, I'm leaving.
Yeah,
I'm getting that. I'm gonna get it. Austin's up there. He'll get me a tryout. That's all I wanted too, But when Kev pushed it, and Bish, to begin with, he was like, because we're friends, he wasn't into that nepotism thing, because that's so much a part of all entertainment. And I respected that. Made me work 5 times harder. And he sort of balked on it a little bit. And Scott Hall said, everybody knows you guys are pros. And if he's your friend and that's not a good thing, I'm not sure how long I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
And friggin', I looked at him like, wow, bro, thanks. And Bish goes, yeah, let's do it. But the booking committee kept bumping it. And it felt like the worst thing that happened to me, but it was the best thing, because it kept prolonging and creating a story. So when they finally screwed me back with Randy, I was just with Bischoff 2 weeks ago, and we never talked about this. I was talking to my girlfriend, this girl I've been with for about a year now. Bish had never met her. And he said to her name is Paige. He said to her, Paige, it's my real first name. Well, it used to be. Now my real first name's Dallas Page, or Dallas Page is my whole name, because I changed it 20 years ago. My real first name used to be Page. And Bish is still going to call me Page forever, whether it's Page and Page, So Bish says, looks at my girlfriend Paige and says, Paige really wanted to work with Savage. but he never brought it to me because Randy was as high up the food chain as you could be. And he said, Randy really wanted to work with Paige. And that, there couldn't be a greater compliment than finding out that Randy Savage, like, wanted to work with you even more than you wanted to work with him.
Yeah.
And then on the way to that, angle, and it was so hot. We had such great interviews back and forth. And then we're doing the circuit, coming up to Spring Stampede, the same place where 2 years later, I'm going to win the world title. And Randy is going to be the guest referee.
Yeah.
2 years before that, though, the night before we're flying to whatever town, I think it was Tacoma, Washington. We had a match in Florence, South Carolina. Couldn't be any farther away from each other in our country. And place is packed. We're the main event. Arn Anderson comes in and he says, so Randy, what do you want to do tonight? Because every night I'm getting my ass kicked by the NWO, or I'm hitting a couple diamond cutters on, Virgil and Buff and running through the crowd. He said, I think I want to take the diamond cutter. And Arn almost fell over. And me too. And Arn looks at me and he goes, well, Diamond, I hope you know, what this, how big this is. I go, yeah, I do. So we get out there. We have a great match. He kicks my ass most of it. I fight for underneath the whole time. And then finally I blow a short comeback. He shut me off, and he knew the time was right, and he went diamond cutter. And he went to slam me, boom, and I flipped it, bang, and the roof blew off.
Yeah.
And when he hit, he landed on his face and flipped to his back. And I took my time and just laid my arm over him. And the whole building, 1, 2, 3. And they couldn't believe it. They went batshit crazy. And I got my arm laying over him and my face in the mat. And as loud as it was, I could hear clear as day him say, well, I guess we know what we're doing for Spring Stampede. And I'm just thinking, is he ribbing me? Is he ribbing me? Is he testing me? I didn't say anything. And when it really happened, it changed my life.
Yeah.
Like, it literally changed my life. And what Kevin Scott had done is took where I was really taken off because of the diamond cutter and all that. Just, if you look, there's a video that one of the head guy who's the main guy who's doing the coolest videos that AEW has. His name is Dylan Freimeyer. When Dylan was, now he's 29. When Dylan was 16, he lost 100 pounds doing my program. Went from 292 to 192. His mom had sent me an email. And I ended up talking to her and getting him on the phone. And his dream is to be edit wrestling stuff. And I had like DVDs full of all my matches. I just sent them to him. And it was all filmed off of TV and then was put on DVD. And he filmed them off the TV and made a video called Diamond Cutters on Everyone. And you see people react a little bit early on, right? And then a little bit, and then a little bit more. One thing I figured out, getting people to do the diamond cutter sign, I would throw it up as a heel and right away pull it down. One day when I threw it up and I came down, I was filming, because I filmed all my matches, and I caught a fan sitting down, starting to do this, and then when I brought my hands down, they brought their hands down. So what I figured out was take it up, and then I would hold it. 3, 2, 1. And that's where the bang came from on that.
Mm.
And that was a sign of you're getting banged. And if you look at Dylan's video, by the middle of the video, people are really popping. But towards the end of that video, people are jumping out of their seats, throwing up the sign, like the whole side of the building. And if you look back at all those guys I hit diamond cutters on that were getting these crazy reactions, they were enhancement guys. Nobody was even a mid-card guy. They were enhancement guys. Yeah. And that shows you the impact of the move. In 1997, when it was getting so over, early 97, I get a call. I hadn't talked to Jake in over a year. I pick up the phone, and all I hear is, "Congratulations." I said, "Jake?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Congratulations for what?" He said, "Reinventing the DDT." For your mentor, Jake and Dusty, for your mentor, the one who taught you how to work in that ring, Dusty taught me business. Dusty taught me they both taught me how to get around shit. Staying, not being negative, and Jake could be really negative at times, but he taught me how to do it differently. And, for really long question, answer to the question, but to get back to April 11th, 1999, Savage being the guest referee and handing me the world title.
Yeah.
It was as surreal as it could be, And I turned myself heel in that towards the end, like tweener, because I liked being not so much a heel, but that tweener spot. Same spot as Steve. Steve said it one night. We were just bullshitting. He's like, we both were doing like the same thing in '97. Like me and him were the two really hottest guys. Sting had gone off into the rafters. Eric, he wasn't really using Rick the way he needed to be used. Steve was red hot, and so was I. And Savage put me over. It literally changed my life. And now to be handing me the world title, it made all the work. Like, I understood, why it happened.
Yeah.
Because I was relentless, because I created real relationships. A lot of people think it's all about who you know or who knows you. The reality is, it's who's willing to say they know you. Who's willing to pick up the phone? Who's willing to go to bat for you? That's what Kevin and Scott did for me. That's what Randy called that. Hulk did the same thing for me later. Like guys that I, really honestly in the beginning never thought I would be anywhere near.
Yeah.
And now I'm one of them. I mean, it was unbelievable. And like my program today doesn't exist without it. If I wasn't the guy who came from off the couch, like this guy Rudy I'm telling you about, there's a lot of Rudys out there, world's full of them, but who's going to really hold on to that dream and believe it and make it happen when everyone else says it never happens? Like people looked at him when he started the two dreams and he succeeded on them, which are mind-boggling. Like I said, Kobe Bryant saying, like, I just watched him on YouTube, saying, my go-to movie is Rudy. Like, you got to watch that movie. And to know what he literally achieved in his life and how he did it is the same thing. It's like, you got to believe in yourself when everybody's laughing at you. Like, I'm sure. How old are you right now?
I'm 20, just turned 20.
Okay. How long you been doing this show?
A couple of months now. I'm still at university, but doing it alongside that. It's a couple of months doing this.
But when you start doing it, people think, what are you doing? You're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it starts to turn into something. And then it turns into something bigger. And you have no idea, where it's going to go. But you said, fuck, I'm going to do this. And next thing you know, you got something working that is like, there's plenty of guys who made, a really good living doing this. Guys like David Meltzer, when he started doing his sheets years ago, look where he is today. Wade Keller, same thing. Guys who were, I met Wade Keller at my first year I was in 1988 in Vegas doing work for AWA, American Wrestling Association. And he was there. He was from that area. So I got to meet him way back then. And now to see what he's doing today, I mean, he's blown that company up, it's all, you just got to believe in yourself when no one else does.
Yeah, I think that's important. And obviously you spoke a lot about the mentors you had with Jake and Dusty, but I think more than anything, if you don't believe in yourself, you can't get anywhere. And I think that's the most important thing. I want to, before we touch on DDPY, because that's obviously main reason we're here, but I want to talk a bit about your last couple of months or last this year with AEW when you're inside the ring again. How was that for you getting to work? I believe before that, your last match was at Mania 32 in Dallas.
Yeah.
How was that?
Actually, it was to do the Battle Royal, which I was asked to do. But that's something super easy. I'm going to hit a diamond cutter on somebody, and I'm going to get thrown over the top rope at some point. The year before that was really a lot of fun with the Rumble, getting hit 3 cutters, and Cody had texted me. Now, I have no idea, what they're going to do with me when I get there. But P.S. Hayes is in charge of it, and Hayes knows. First of all, me and him are super tight, and we don't have to. We could talk. We could not talk for 10 years. We'd still be super tight.
Yeah.
And he had it set up with Diamond Cutter on Cody, Diamond Cutter on Fandango, Diamond Cutter on fucking my man. I couldn't believe I was going to get hit him. But Cody had texted me, and he said, how apropos that I am the first to take the cutter. That's first I heard of it. And I've been, been a voice in Cody's ear since he was 12, So getting to, just be a part of that whole thing. And, I told him when I knew he was doing All In, because I was retired, like I was done doing cutters. And just because of my shoulder, my back, and, I feel really great, but I'm also, I always say I'm still a Ferrari. I got 998,000 miles on me, so bottom line is, taking one more diamond cutter, that could tear my shoulder or something, So I said, he called me up. I called him up and I said, I just want you to know, if you need it, I got a cutter there for you if you want it. Because he was, I thought you weren't doing it anymore. I said, for you, I will. I go, if WWE calls me, I'm sure I do it for them too. But
can I ask, was it for him or was it for Dusty as well?
It was for him, because when I first started working with him and hanging with him and just talking to him all the time back when he was a kid, it started for Dusty, for what he did for me. Yeah. But at some point, it came all about Cody. Like Cody, I mean, you can see him when he's in the ring. I mean, there's no one having a better time than him out there. And to be there at All In, and he had called me back like the night before, and he said, "You're coming, right?" I'm like, "Of course I'm coming." Now I got that workshop I'm doing for DDP Yoga. He goes, "Oh yeah, that's right." He goes, "You think you got one more cutter in you?" I said, "Of course I do." He goes, I'll tell you what it is when you get here. I said, okay. So that was great. You know, that match was great.
Yeah.
That was old school with new school filtered in. And to me, that's what wrestling's supposed to be. Because the characters, you got to care. You got to really want to see that one win. And the story that they tell, they let you, like, to me, a lot of matches, and I'm not saying it's wrong because everything changes, but a lot of matches have bumps so fast. And if any one person, and I know the wrestling fans appreciate it more than anybody, but they have no idea how much those bumps are going to hurt these men and women when they get to their 50s. Like, they have no idea. Their 60s, like, I'm 64 now. And the difference between 50 and 55 was dramatic. Between 50 and 55 and 60 was really dramatic. 60s on up, every day I do my program, pieces of it, because I have to. I have to if I want to be able to keep doing them. And I mean, sometimes twice a day. It's like 10, 12 minutes, but I feel like a completely different person. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times when I'm doing these moves that I go through, I think, man, this shit really works. Like, no, those guys have no idea how bad they're going to be hurt. And a lot of them could take half the bumps, sell, and get even better reaction because their bumps are spectacular. They're wow. You know, the Darby Allens, you know, the Lucha Brothers, you know, God, the Young Bucks. I mean, Kenny Omega. I mean, all these guys, they are incredible athletes that have a shelf of adapting that I'm blown away. You know, I'm blown away how much, you know, punishment they can take and see keep on going. And Cody, I mean, what does he do when he comes off the top of the cage to that young kid? You know, when friggin' he was up against Wardlow. I mean, that kid had probably 20 matches. He goes to the top of the cage to make that kid and show that he's still going to go and do what he needs to do. And I was blown away. You know, he takes some big risks. But his first part is the story.
Yeah. And
why, and who he is, and the passion that he has. You know, that's the shit. He's completely different than his old man. You know, they're together by blood. Or Dusty would say, he come from my loins, he would say. But he is his own man. He has built his own history. And Dusty would be as proud as humanly possible, as proud as that you could be. And yeah, he's got something, he's got that special thing. And over the last 10 years, I'll give you an example. When he was 47-0 as a junior, and he told me his sophomore year, not this year, next year, I'm going to win the state championship. I was like, that's a bold statement, especially for a kid who was like 12 and 13 the year before. You know, and he was better than that his sophomore year, but his senior year, or his junior year, I talked to him through all of it. And I flew from Los Angeles to Georgia for a state championship. And then he went undefeated that whole junior year. His senior year, I can't remember if it was his 12th or his 13th match, but he lost that. And I called him up like, hey, Young Buck, what's up, bro? It still cracks me up that I called him Young Buck all that time. He said, what's up, Young Buck? He goes, I lost, Dallas. I fucking lost. I was like, thank God. What? Why would you say that? I said, Cody, come on, man. You don't learn anything from winning, man.
Yeah.
You learn from losing. You learn from falling down, making mistakes. I said, would you rather been in the quarterfinals, both been undefeated, and he beat you then? I said, here's what you have right now. What did you learn? And we talked about it. I said, that's amazing. You're going to learn a lot more between now and the States. And said, the advantage you have is he thinks he beat you.
Yeah.
He thinks he beat you, bro. That's your advantage. And what had happened over that next part of this, his season, kids knew they couldn't beat him, but they didn't want to get pinned by him. And he figured that out a couple of matches in. So what he would do is he would take him down, let him up. Take him down, let him up. Take him down, let him up, take him down, let him up, take him down and pin him. He was in such insane shape for that senior year state finals. And I was there again with my daughter, Brittany. And when you're in the finals, you get 5 family members down there on the mat on chairs. And he looked up at me and he's, Dad. I was in the stands. Get Dallas down here. And he brought me down there to be there. And I watched him eat that kid alive. He was 47-0, that other kid. But he didn't finish undefeated.
No.
And it was a great feeling, man, to be there. So I've always showed up. And I don't show up for, I didn't show up for Dusty. I showed up for Cody. And that's what I was going to do with All In. And then at some point, we started talking about a match. And at first I said yes. And then I called them back and I was like, I think, 63 feels so good. I don't know if I really want to do it. Man, let's table it. And then it came up again in December. We wouldn't do it till January.
Yeah.
And then it hit me. When I wrestled, it was 1979, first time. In 1989, I was managing and doing color commentating for Dusty in Florida Championship Wrestling. I didn't have a match. Big Steel Man, who people know as Tugboat or Shockmaster. Fred Ottmer's his name. Fred had a match with Dickie Slater. If Fred lost, Slater got 5 minutes with me. So I literally have a match. I actually did a couple of things. Slater let me do some shit to him. I looked like I knew what I was doing. I had no idea. Blind, Slater leading a blind man. But I looked like I kind of knew what I was doing. But as a match, I had one match in the 80s. Then the 90s, I had my career. 2000. In 2010, I don't consider showing up at a battle royal or something a match. It's got to be an actual match. And on January 2nd of 2010, I was asked to be in a tag in Rome, Georgia. And I decided to do it because then I'd have 5 decades in.
Yeah.
Well, when Cody asked me again, I realized it's 2020. That would make, I wrestled in 6 decades. I'm going to do it. And when he told me that I had the whole comeback, and then I was going to come over off the top rope. I didn't sell it, but my body was like, oh, fuck. And I'm all about the story you tell yourself. And I fucked with my head a little bit on that because I could have tore my ACL, I could have broke my neck, I could have tore my rotator cuff again. Anything could have happened. And once I decided to do it, I knew it was going to be fucking unbelievable because that's the only story I told myself. And there couldn't, if I never do anything in wrestling again, there is no better, as Cody would say in Relentless, he talks about it, you know, taking off into, you know, the last ride. You know, it was unbelievable.
So you mentioned, obviously, maybe we might not see you again in wrestling. Do you think you will do some more stuff in wrestling?
I don't think I'll wrestle again because I don't know how I'd top that. And Cody said, you know, you may have one more. And I said, well, you'll have to explain to me how it's will be better than this.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, I can't do less than. It always bothered me when WWE would have legends come out there and they just beat them up. That's like bringing the, you know, the Eagles or the Beatles or, you know, the Rolling Stones back and then not letting them play.
Yeah.
I never understood that. Cody does just the opposite because he never understood that either. You know, whatever. I just never understood it. It's too much good. And old wrestling fans, probably one of their top things is nostalgia. You know, the smart marks who are really smart, like, no, we don't need to go back in there because they love to rip on everything, but whoever they are. But as a whole fans go crazy. You know, they love it. So, well, I'll never say never, but I don't know how I top that, bro.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll see in 2030 to get that other decade.
You see, that would mean something big time.
Yeah.
Because then I'd be 73. And if I could still go out there, and God rest his soul, Hall of Famer, Bullet Bob Armstrong, man, the Bullet was something special. And he just passed last month. And he wrestled in his 80s. He wrestled. He did that and got a huge pop from the people, from the crowd. Small crowds, but he'd been doing that for 50 years, 60 years. Mm-hmm. Crazy, man.
It's incredible. Before I let you go, because you have been more than generous with your time, which I really appreciate. I want to talk about DDPY. I want to talk about the benefit it can have to people and why people, I think, of all ages. I mean, you're in your 60s, I'm in my 20s. We're both doing it, and it's both having benefits for us. I think that's an important thing as well to consider, that it's not just for people that are, I guess, beaten up and sort of need that help, but it can also be of great use to them. So sort of talk to us about DDPY, why you love it so much, why you believe in it so much, and the benefit it can have on, I guess, all people regardless of age and physical ability.
Well, you know, I've been filming everything from my house over this whole COVID time. And I didn't really think about it. But one of my buddies who was working out with me said, you know, you really have to be descriptive of who's out there with you at the time. And I started talking about it. Like, do you remember, do you remember seeing, and while you were looking at some of the old stuff, Ice Train? He was a big black dude with really big arms.
I think so.
Yeah, well, his sons, they're 19 and 20, and they're just thoroughbreds. They're really super athletes. Rick Steiner's son, Bronson Rick Steiner. That's Rick Steiner's actually his real last name. Let's call him Bronson Steiner. He just had a tryout. He didn't make it, but he was super, super, super close to making it. The Ravens, the football team here. He's a thoroughbred. I've had those three guys in a class with me. with my girlfriend, Paige, who's 46. I'm 63. My buddy Josh is 51. Jake is 65, using a chair. And Ted is 85. No, excuse me, 86. On the mat all at the same time. And we're all doing the same workout, but we're doing it because DDPY meets you where you are. And that's why you could have a workout with me. I'm going to be doing, okay, here's phase 1. You can stop here or go to here or go to here or go to here. And you do what you can do. And, once the app has blown up huge over this period, but we're still selling a lot of DVDs too, which blows my mind.
Yeah.
But the app has blown up huge, mainly because all the workouts are on there, plus all new stuff every week. There's over 260 workouts up there. They start off in bed. So if you can't get out of bed, I got 3 workouts for you that'll help you get in a chair and do the workouts in a chair, which will help you use the chair to get up and get down and build balance and strength, which will take you to beginner all the way to psycho extreme. And then every Monday, motivational Monday. We have a site. I tell people, don't listen to a word I have to say. This is not controlled by me. This is members only. A buddy of mine named Chris Gabriano started it just for him and a couple of his buddies who were doing the program. Now it has over 50,000 people, active people, putting up their stories. Where are they along the way? People come and read what people write. It's so inspirational that I now go on there and pick a story that I find that someone posted, and I call it Fabulous Facebook Fridays.
I think I saw one today.
It's just like, I can't believe, wow, this is so cool. And sometimes it's just a picture of a woman who's been doing the program for friggin' 8 weeks, and her face, how much it's changed. And then the story of why she posted that. And people who are big, and I mean big, put those 6 pictures up there with pride. Like, okay, here's where I'm starting, and here's where I'm going. And the journey has been unbelievable. And I believe that has a lot to do with my people who are very interactive and help each other. And we've also got on the app as well, it's not like a program of what to eat. I'm going to show you how to make it. I'm going to video myself making it right with you. So you can see like this is shit I eat, and it's healthy. But if it doesn't taste good, I don't give a how healthy it is. I'm not eating it. Mm. So, it's got all of that and the community. So if anybody's thinking about trying it, I've always got 7 free days on my app. Cost you nothing to try. I mean, I don't know how I give you a better deal than that, because in a week whether you're really going to do something or not. If it's going to really change you and really take you to that next level. And the app is just amazing. And a lot of people will fall off because it's just DVDs. Well, when every week I'm there on Monday and I'm talking to you. If you took the beginner program, every week I'm going to take you through the next 13 weeks of what to do. Every Friday I'm going to be reading something from another thing. Every Tuesday I'm going to be coming out with a new workout. And whatever day we throw a cooking show up there. So it's like, you don't get to forget about it. And some people will just keep it and hold it and get out. Okay, now I'm ready. And to me, anyone who's doing my program, if they're putting the work in, at some point, there's a really good chance they're going to hear from me. And I don't know who does that shit. I mean, I call people all the time. And that girl who's on Facebook Fridays today, I will be calling her at some point today.
I think that's why people like it, because it feels, and for me anyway, it feels personable. I know when some of the workouts you do, you leave the heart rate spot like one open for the person doing home, so you feel like you're actually doing
Right.
it, which is what I like. But
Right.
we'll put all of the links to everything in the description so people can check that out. But before I let you go, I want to ask one final question about Jake Roberts. Obviously, uh, you've helped him a lot. I think it's easier for people to understand the impact of something if they hear an example of someone that they know or someone that they've seen on TV and the impact it's had on them. So let's talk a little bit, just if you can, briefly, on what your obviously wins share about Jake and how the DDPY program has really helped him and transformed his life.
You know, Jake used to say, you have to understand, when I moved him in my house in 2012, over 8 years ago, people thought I was crazy. You know, because Jake was a known booze, pills, coke, crack. You know, he's an addict. He'll be the first to tell you that. But Jake had helped me so much. I never looked at it like that. I looked at, I want to help my buddy. That's how I looked at it. I want to pay him back for helping me. And so I tried a bunch of times. And that finally, you know, when he said, okay, I'll do it. I said, okay, I'm going to come down. I'm going to work with you that first day. And I'll tell you, Jake, if you lose 20 pounds on your own, like I make people work before I'm going to do shit for them. Jake, I come down and get him going myself. Me and Steve went down there and filmed it. And tough for Jake to believe it's someone filming him when, you know, there's been Beyond the Mat. Like that guy, Barry, raped him. Like that director, he really fucked him. Because he filmed him doing crack and all sorts of stuff. Jake didn't know that he was, you know, that was happening.
Yeah.
He's fucked up. And he never thought Barry was going to screw him like that. So he knew I wouldn't screw him, but he didn't know about Steve. Wasn't so sure about that. So what ended up happening is he lost 20 pounds on his own really quickly, like in 6 weeks. I was like, stop losing weight. I'm coming. So we got that next film. And then we brought, you know, and he came up. And when he came up, man, we got Deadspin, Yahoo Sports, HBO, Real Sports. I mean, we got big freaking programs like wanting to come in because now Scott's there too, you know, and they just couldn't believe, you know, like, we need to hear more about this. And I would hear Jake say, when he's talking about the program, because it's not just the workouts. It's how you eat. It's how that, and that's, I always say 10% of the equation. The 90% is between your ears.
Yeah.
You know, it's that life's 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. It's all about the story you tell yourself. And at one point, Jake had said, he started saying, I get confidence. It gives me confidence. He kept saying that. And finally, after one of the interviews, I go, bro, how does the workout give you confidence? When you say that, what are you saying? He goes, oh, man, you got to remember, when I lost that first 10 pounds, that was a huge win for me. And I hadn't had a win at that point in 20 years. Then he lost some more. Then he lost some more. Then he was using the chair, and he couldn't even do that. Then all of a sudden he used the chair, and then all of a sudden he didn't need the chair. And gave him confidence and confidence and confidence. And what really gave him confidence, when people would see how good he was doing, and then he could help them. I tell people all the time, you want to cut down on your depression? Help someone. Like, it really works. Help someone. Like, I never got into doing wrestling because I wanted to be a millionaire. Did I become a millionaire? Yes, I did. And then I put it all towards freaking DDP yoga. All $548,000 I put in this company before I made a dime. And there was times I second guessed myself, believe me. But then I'd get on the mat and I'd relieve that stress. Or I'd get an email from someone thanking me for creating a program that they could do. And it would be so personal to them that it would hit me like that. It'd choke me up. And that's the way it's been all the way through. You know, if anybody's ever seen Resurrection of Jake the Snake or think you saw pieces of it on YouTube, you didn't see it then. Amazon Prime in my country, I would think it's over there too.
It is, yeah.
Resurrection of Jake the Snake, watch it. It's amazing. And it's helped so many people get off drugs, change their life, stop drinking, you know, because it was ruining their lives. And it's helped so many people turn their lives around. It's unbelievable. And Jake today is the best Jake I've ever known. He's amazing. And before COVID, he was making more money than he ever made. Ever. Again, he's helping people. So if over that period, people just got to understand, the more you help people, the better your life's going to be. And don't worry about the money. Don't do it for the money. The money will come. The reward will come in one way or another. And it doesn't happen when you think it's gonna. It happens when it happens. Inside my Hall of Fame ring, it says, work ethic equals dreams, exclamation point, DDP. Gonna leave you with that, man. Go to DDPY.com, DDPyoga.com. Twitter at RealDDP or at DDPyoga. Instagram at Diamond Dallas Page, at DDPyoga. But the main one you want to see, if you want to know about the program, go to Facebook, one word, DDPyoga. Members, just click it, and you're in, and it'll blow your mind.
And brother, 7 days free on the app, which is
7 days free.
Check it out because it's helped me a lot. I went in, I'll be honest, a bit hesitant. I was thinking, what can it do for me? And it's been amazing, and I continue using it every day. So honestly, if you guys do, check it out. 7 days trial, and I guarantee the majority of people will probably end up continuing because they've enjoyed it so much.
Thank you, bro. You have an awesome day, okay?
Thank you so much, sir.
See you, buddy.